Well, hello, my friends. I am so excited to be here with Jeff Beckman. He's the Executive Director of Development for the Salvation Army Western Division. We've done this before. Jeff, it's so great to see you. Exciting time of year.
It's just great to be with you during this time of the year, Andy. And again, we appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today about what we're doing at the Salvation Army.
Yeah, absolutely. And it truly is the season. I know we're going to talk about, I just want to talk about the tree lighting, which was on November 14th. And actually the weather was beautiful, and probably the biggest crowd ever. And there was, I'm going to let you talk about and kind of what that was all about, because that truly is kicking off the red kettle season.
Yeah, it was. So a lot of people have gone over the last couple of decades to our tree lighting
Yeah,
ceremony.
yeah. Me included.
And the American National Bank, friends of ours, the Katoshas, said, how about this year if we try to make it a little bit different than what it's been in the past? So we did bring in three different music groups that performed. We had food from two different vendors. We had Santa Claus, and I think there's still a line trying to, see Santa Claus.
Yeah.
And we really emphasized volunteer engagement this year. Now, one thing we probably talked about is the need for financial support, but the underlying message was to get more people to sign up, in this case, to ring at kettle sites. And to
Yeah.
answer your question, we had about 700 people there. We gave away all the food. Usually we have to figure out what we're going to do with a few leftovers, not this year. So
Yeah.
it was a wonderful event on a perfect night, and we were so grateful for everybody in the community who came out.
Yeah. And truly, when you're driving down Dodge Street or 90th, 90th Street, 90th and Dodge, that tree is just such a symbol of hope and a symbol of um, giving, and what this community is about when it lights up, and it will be lit until, I think, um, is it New Year's?
Yes, I believe it goes till New Year's most years, and
Yeah.
then we have to find a nice weekend to take it
Yeah.
down. Actually, it
Yeah.
usually goes a little bit past into January. But it's that beacon of hope. It's that
Yeah.
iconic, the kettle is iconic in terms of the Salvation Army across the world, especially across this nation.
Yes.
That tree in the middle of Omaha on the busiest intersection, and I think there's data that supports it, 90th and Dodge. I think even when I drive by there, and we talk about the tree almost every day in the work that I do, every time I see it, it does bring that hope. It gets your mind off of all the things we see in the media all the time. And
Yeah.
as you know, and your viewers know, a lot of what we've seen in recent months hasn't been easy to digest.
Yeah.
And this is hope. It lights up not only the community, but the beautiful thing about it is that the contributions that are given to the Salvation Army, whether it's 10 cents in a kettle or $100,000 from a corporate or foundation sponsor, you're making life better for up to 70,000 individuals in this community who are among the most vulnerable members of our
Yeah.
community, who look to a lot of great nonprofits in the community. We are blessed to have great philanthropists, great nonprofits. The Salvation Army has 70,000 unduplicated individuals, sometimes more, that we serve every year. So when you're putting a dollar in that kettle, or you're writing out a check, or a penny, like I see kids come by and mom and dad give them some coins to put in,
Yeah.
you got to remember that you're not just giving money, you're improving the lives, you're improving of many people, and improving the community.
Yeah. Again, I just love, because I've been, out and about and hearing bells ringing. And for me personally, I just want to let all the viewers know. I mean, I typically have about $100 that in ones and or whatnot, because I always, whenever I walk by a kettle, I want to put something in it. And the people that are out there ringing those bells,
Mhm.
are doing it because they're wanting to give back. They're volunteering, and they care about the Salvation Army and this community. So that might segue into, let's talk about the bell ringers.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for. It reminds me, my wife always gives me a hard time when I go by the sixth kettle on a weekend day when we're out running around town, or I'm exaggerating, two or three times,
Yeah.
and sometimes I don't want to put that dollar in the third one, and then she goes, "Put a dollar in there, you've got to set the example." But we really are blessed that a lot of people still give through the kettle. Our goal this year is to raise approximately $500,000 of the $3.2 million goal. And keep in mind, 86% of what you're giving or more goes into programs and services. And that tells you a little bit about the need that we have. Trying to raise $3.2 million during a 2-month period and $500,000 in the kettles. Getting back to your question about volunteers, though, any business person, anybody can understand this illustration. If we have what we call an empty kettle, and you've seen them, you go into one of the supermarkets or discount stores, and nobody's standing there. Sometimes people will put money in, but rarely. So we say the return on that investment with no volunteer there is zero.
Yeah.
If you show up, Andy, or other viewers show up, and believe me, I do a lot of ringing on nights and weekends, it equates to an average of $50 an hour. And a shift is 2 hours. And I've done shifts before where I haven't made $100, but I've done shifts in places where I've made much more than that. That's how you can contribute to the Salvation Army, because not everybody can give a large gift. We get that. But if you give a gift of your time, what
Yeah.
a wonderful place to spend time with your family, with a coworker. I love seeing families at these kettle sites, and they have fun. And you can put lights on, you can dress up, you can play an instrument, you can sing, you can be so creative. And I will guarantee you that the more creative you get, the more fun you have with it, the
Yes.
more people will interact with you.
Yeah, I've gone by kettles with a saxophone player and with kids, and yeah, I think families, and they're out there ringing bells and they're dancing, and or they've got holiday music playing in the background.
Yep.
Um, it's such a gift that first of all they're out there, and also it just is supporting such an important organization and
Mhm.
everything that you do. And as we're, this time of year, people are giving. I know that Salvation Army 365 days a year, and there's so much going on in what you're doing in the programs. But why don't we just talk a little bit about, and before we end, I do want to talk about people can go on your website because I'm actually looking at your website now. They can
Yep.
sign up to ring bells. They can they companies I think is a big place. Is if you have a company and
Yes.
you said it's a couple hours, it's super fun. I mean, it's just so much fun to get out there in the midst of all of it.
It is. If you go to omaharedkettle.org, or I'm sorry, I always have to look .org.
Yeah.
Or what I do is you can just, they always say Google it. If you go in there, do a search, put up, register
Yeah.
to ring, register, whatever, it'll take you there. But the direct link is Omaha redkettle.org, and
Great.
it'll take you right to it. And, the other point I like to make around kettles is, again, and I've gotten sunburned rigging, believe it or not, on the south side of a Hy-Vee one time on a bright day on a Saturday afternoon, all right in the forehead. And I've shivered. And what I say is that if you shiver or whatever elements you're going through for 2 hours, it's kind of tough. We're helping people who are living in those conditions, homeless, who hopefully we get into our housing,
Yeah.
through our food programs, Winter Night Watch, which goes out every night during the winter, Monday through Friday, to individuals who still don't have warm food to eat. They may not have socks, they may not have coats, they may not have mittens. Um, so that 2 hours is kind of a sacrifice. And I'll say this: sometimes our younger friends and people in our family are more apt to call in, unable to ring on a cold night than adults. But just keep in mind that, if you want to do that, bundle up, have fun. We don't expect more than an hour or two at a kettle site. You might even alternate, go with a coworker, say, I'll take the first hour, you can have the second hour. We just need to get more people there.
Right. I have this is totally, well, it's not off topic, but if you don't have somebody that there's for one reason or another, because sometimes, people are sick or something happens, do you have like a
Mhm.
wait list? I mean, is there like, can I be on like your speed dial that if somebody doesn't show up, you can say, hey, Andy, I need you over at 180th and Hy-Vee. And I'll say, all right, I'll be there.
Well, you can call our volunteer office and they'll
Okay.
they'll put you there.
Okay.
Um, that's actually just a really good question. What I would say is, if you've got an open time that you're not aware of, go to our register to ring, and you'll find openings there. And the other thing, I'll get in trouble by saying this, I'm saying that tongue in cheek. If people go by a kettle, the bells are typically always there in that kettle. If you just look behind them. You can, I pick them out and just start ringing. But the point is if, if you find a time when you want to do it, go to the website. If not, you can call our volunteer office. What typically happens is that it's at an odd hour and nobody's here. It's
Yeah.
evenings, it's weekends. But, and the other thing you can always do if you feel like contributing also, you can go online and make a contribution to our virtual red kettle by following that same wild link.
And I'm looking over here because I'm actually on. I just got on the Register to Ring site.
Yep.
Um, you can volunteer. You can be a virtual ringer, and that's one thing I do want to talk about. Um,
Mhm.
you know, with the technology today, and also, people, if you're not out and about or you can't be out
Mhm.
and about, you can give online. You can fill a kettle or do something
Yes.
via online.
Yeah, and one of the challenges that we have with kettles, when I first came here 10 years ago, kettles represented about 25% of our Christmas revenue. And because fewer people shop now, more people shop online, lesser traffic, the numbers are against it, weighted against us. So we are encouraging more people to give virtually. You can go online and do that. And the other thing we're doing, even within corporations that say, hey, we'd love to send volunteers out, we really can't do that. But any size business can set up what we call a classy campaign. That's an online web campaign where you can invite your staff members to go to it, make a contribution on behalf of an employee working for a company. The best example I can give, because we're going to be recognizing them during this Christmas season, is Tenasca. They have an internal ambassador and they have CEOs who have supported this, and they'll put out an email to their team saying, today we're going to give you an opportunity to support the Salvation Army. Please consider, and you can set that up. So anybody who wants to do that, you can probably do it within your own family if you want to. You can set something up online like that and give much more conveniently, because I know I can look at my wife and my shopping habits. We do shop more online and probably over the course of the year make far fewer visits than we would have, other years. Or maybe we do all of our Christmas shopping online some years, and that takes away from our traffic.
Right. You know what, Jeff, we're going to take just a quick break, and then we're going to come back and talk about more red kettle ringing and Salvation Army in this time of year. So, folks,
Perfect.
don't wait. We'll be right back. All right, folks, welcome back. I'm here with Jeff Beckman with the Salvation Army. I'm looking over this way. We're talking about red kettles this time of year. It's such an important time for so many who do not have the means and the resources, and really need our help. But I'm looking on register to ring. So I typed in Omaha, Nebraska. So it's so easy to find a place to ring. I can select my city. I can select my location. Do I want to ring at Baker's, Big Lots, Cabela's, Chick-fil-A, Harley Davidson? I mean, there's Hy-Vee. I mean, there's just Nebraska Furniture Mart. You can go in and specifically, I mean, you can be specific about where you want to ring so it's convenient for you. And um, I will be signing up after we get off of this interview, but this just makes it so easy because I know this was not, this kind of technology wasn't around years and years ago.
No, and it was much more manual, and this register to ring online is just wonderful.
Yeah.
It saves a lot of time. It helps us to schedule. And frankly, I would encourage anybody who's interested to look ahead, because certain shifts do fill more quickly. Where we really need help, Andy, is on Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays.
Okay.
Traffic picks up. I'm not discouraging anybody, particularly from some of your busier sites like Walmart and Hy-Vee. They Big Lots. There's certain ones, and Bakers. And I'm going to get myself in trouble. I'll forget one of our great stores, Family Fare. Some of the other
Yeah.
we're going to chains and stores that have lots of traffic. Typically, it picks up more obviously on weekends. So those are the slots that we really want to make sure that are filled. Now, we do occasionally, you will see what we call paid bell ringers at some of our sites, and we do pay approximately minimum wage to
Hmm.
individuals who are in some of our programs. Okay.
Yeah.
And you sometimes recognize that by the individuals who are by the stores. And we always say, because of what I talked about earlier in the program, we know that if you have somebody ringing a bell, it'll bring in $50 an hour, roughly $50 an hour,
Yeah.
as opposed to less. Once in a while, again, people who are not working anyway in our programs, we can give them the opportunity to invest a day in work and pay them some money to stand out there in the cold, sometimes all day, and yet the net return is good. So it's a win-win. You're
Yeah.
giving people who are down in life an opportunity, and some of them you would never know it because they're such good communicators, and it really gives them confidence. But we really need volunteers.
Yes. Yeah.
Volunteers. We also know. Bring a dog along if you're allowed to at a site. Bring your children. I have grandchildren.
Yeah.
What do they say? Chick magnets. This is a magnet, a kettle magnet.
Yeah.
If you have your
Yeah.
little grandchild there, yeah,
I'm going to reiterate this again because what I do each season is I allocate money. For me, it's $100 to Salvation Army, and I just want to make sure every time I walk by a kettle and somebody's ringing, I want to put a dollar in there. Uh,
yep.
I don't want to walk by a kettle and not have a dollar, or it could be a quarter, or it could be pennies. I mean, everything adds up. So I'm just saying that to you, everyone watching this. Just always have something in your pockets just to put in that kettle. It's such a
The,
great.
the other Andy, the other thing I see is a lot of people who go by, and it's kind of that guilt we get, and I get it when I go by Scouts or whomever it is that's selling in front of a store. A lot of people go into the store, they get cash, and they come back out
Yeah.
now because people
Yeah.
don't carry as much cash. So there are just different ways you can do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And like we were talking about cash, but also you can do it virtually. There's just so many ways to to help the Salvation Army, whether you're putting money in the kettles then or you're um ringing bells.
Yeah.
uh I want to go back. We talked a little bit about the tree, the lighting um on November 14th, which again is just such a beautiful day. I have to mention our friend Willie Thiessen, who is this year's 2024 Army Tree of Lights campaign chair, and he is out there ringing bells and doing all kinds of things. So, anything you want to mention about that? He's just, I mean, he's just kicking. He's kicking
Uh,
it.
Willie is absolutely phenomenal, and Willie has volunteered on our winter night watch routes for years,
Yeah,
very quietly.
yeah.
Willie has helped us with backpack drives. He bought Costco out of backpacks last year. We needed 10,000 backpacks, and we were
Wow,
down to the end, and he went out and I think bought 100 of them. He is helping with our North Core at 24th and Pratt. We're a $30 million project there.
big
He's
deal.
advising us on the kitchen. He's everywhere. And he has done a phenomenal job because he believes in the mission. And that's what's so
Yeah,
critically important. When you have a chair, anybody who has a passion for the mission, and Willie does, and anything around food, Willie, because
yeah,
founder of Godfather's Pizza,
yes,
he knows something about food. So we have really enjoyed working with Willie. And my challenge with Willie is keeping up with him.
yeah,
I won't give his age, but if you see him, he's older than I am, and I can't keep up. So he's
yeah.
been fantastic.
He is yeah, I know he's so passionate about this. I've had coffee with him and chatted with him about this. And to me, again, the whole season of what just the holiday season, regardless of how you celebrate the holidays, it's just so important for those who just don't have the means or the opportunity, or they did it when they were younger. Or I mean, there's just
Yeah.
life happens, and sometimes it's just not that good. And this is just a way to really give back and provide people that don't have what we have. Um, Hope. Again, I will go back to that. The hope that the tree of lights truly is hope.
It is. And, just to reiterate, I was asked earlier today, how I feel when I go to work. And I said, I've worked in development for 39 years. worked in healthcare, education, public broadcasting, and now human services. And I've been blessed to work at, many organizations that, you're not afraid to ask people to support.
Yeah.
The Salvation Army, and it may be my last full-time job, based upon, I just told you I'm approaching 40 years in this business.
Yeah.
There hasn't been a day that I haven't gotten up and said, I can look anybody in the eye and ask them to support this organization because I know the type of work that we do. And I know the way that the Salvation Army handles its money. It's very, very efficient. The men and women who wear the uniform, the officers, are, first of all, ordained pastors who get a very, modest salary, and they get a car and they get a place to live. They're all very modest. They
Right.
give their lives to the Army. We're not paying huge salaries.
Yeah.
We take that pride in being somewhere on between 86 and 88% of everything goes into programs and services. We do have overhead. I always say I'm overhead. But every nonprofit does. It's a wonderful organization that is really concerned. There's a faith-based side. So if you want to participate in our Christian faith-based programs and services, you can. That's optional.
Yeah.
But serving the needs of all human beings without discrimination is what the Army does better, I think, than anybody I'm aware of. And I know there are other nonprofits that do a great job, but I can tell you, and that part without discrimination, the Army doesn't care if you're Christian, if you're unchurched, if you're, regardless of where you are. They don't care if you're gay or straight. The Army doesn't care if you go to church, on which side of the street. The Army is there to take care of everyone. And I've seen it in action. And the men and women who work in the trenches of social services do very difficult work every day, and they show up every day, 24/7, 365 days a year, and they're helping the most vulnerable people in the community.
Yeah. Well, Jeff, thank you for just an amazing conversation. Again, Salvation Army, I mean, 365 days a year, um, people can contribute, but in the season right now, when you're walking by those red kettles, uh, put some change, put some money in there, help those in need. And again, I'm looking forward to, once we get into 2025, we'll have a conversation and really kind of dive into the programs and everything that the Salvation Army does, because it's across the board. It's from uh, babies to elderly. I mean, there's so much that you do, and you've got a lot of things happening in the works that are super exciting for this community.
We do, and I would love to come back and talk more about it. As you can tell, there's a passion that I have, and
Yeah,
the point that you hit is we serve everybody.
yeah,
Some people will say, "Well, that's a fault. You should be narrower." And I find at the Salvation Army,
yeah,
they're serving whoever's in need. That safety net in the community. And then we have a lot of other programs that are more outcome oriented, impact oriented as well. But we're the safety net. We're going to be there for anybody in a time of need and in a time of disaster as well. And we
yep,
could talk about that too, whether it's a tornado or a flood or a
absolutely.
crisis in their own lives. Hmm.
Absolutely. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for this conversation today.
Mhm.
I appreciate you and everything that you do, and all of the team members that you have, and all the volunteers, and just a really special organization that does so much for so many. So thank you.
Well, and thank you. You've done so much for this community over the years by telling the great stories of the nonprofit
Thank you.
community and promoting what it is that we do. And we're very grateful for that. And thank you for having me.
Yeah. You are welcome. And folks, put change in your pocket, put a few dollars in your pocket every time you walk by a red kettle. Make sure you toss something in there. So, all right, my friends, thank you so much. And I'll see you next week. Bye.